Y'all. Well, so one of the most common questions that we get at Boyd Grants with our clients is why can't we just apply for operating support? So today I am um, hopefully going to help y'all figure out which is the best one to go for you. Neither one is right, neither one is wrong. It's just a matter of what works for your organization. So I'm excited for you guys to join in with us. If you've got any questions, let Melissa know. We'll address the Q&A at the end. And let's go ahead and jump in. So there are two typical grant types, and the most common are program or project grants and general operating grants, also known as general support or unrestricted grants. A program grant is designed to support a specific project or activity within the organization. They have restrictions, and the funding is tied to a project-based outcome, meaning it must be used for a particular activity or initiative outlined in the grant proposal. These grants generally require a detailed budget, and the grantee must strictly adhere to this budget during the project's duration. A little bit more on the general operating grants. These are more flexible and are meant to support an organization's overall operations and infrastructure. These funds can be used at the organization's discretion, and they often cover essential costs like operating expenses and overhead, such as rent, utilities, and staff salaries. Unlike program grants, grantees have the flexibility to allocate the funds wherever they need it most, providing a financial cushion that helps maintain organizational stability. So the key distinctions between a program and operating is program is restricted to specific projects with limited use, and operating is unrestricted and flexible, and it supports the broader organizational needs. Both grant types serve important purposes depending on the organization's goals. Program grants provide targeted funding for specific initiatives, while general offer the flexibility to maintain and grow your overall operations. Okay, so let's jump in to program support. The presentation is split into two. So we're going to talk about program support first, then we're going to talk about general operating support after that. Okay, so everything that we're going to talk about right now is focused on program. Some advantages to program support is it can respond to new and innovative projects. It gives you more control on how the grantee spends funding, and you cannot rely on just one funding source. Some of the limitations are the grantee can't use the funds as they know best. So if you're in the middle of operating your program, you can't just randomly use funding that for something other than what you wrote in the grant. Grantees might mold their work to fit whatever project funds are available. And we don't necessarily want to mold our work to fit the project funds that are available. We want to create a program design and then apply for grants as they fit the program design. So a program support refers to the funding that is specifically designated for particular projects or programs within an organization. This type of funding is typically aimed at addressing a specific need or achieving defined outcomes related to a particular initiative. One of the primary characteristics of program support is that it's restricted funding. This means that the funds can only be used for designated activities outlined in the grant proposal. Organizations must carefully manage these funds to ensure they are used as intended. When applying for program support, organizations often submit a proposal that details specific objectives, goals, and expected outcomes. This structured approach ensures that both the funder and the organization have a clear understanding of what the funding will accomplish. Program support often comes with specific reporting requirements, requiring organizations to provide updates on their progress and demonstrate how the funds have been utilized to meet the outlined objectives. Here's an example of a classic program support. for a new community outreach. If a nonprofit organization seeks to launch a health education program for underserved populations, they might apply for program support to cover the costs related to materials, staffing, and outreach efforts. Another example is funding for an educational program, such as an after-school tutoring service for students in low-income areas. This funding would be specifically allocated to develop the curriculum, hire tutors, and purchase necessary supplies with the expectation of measurable outcomes, such as improved student performance. Understanding program support is crucial for organizations seeking targeted funding for specific initiatives. Now that we've defined it, let's move on to explore what some of the advantages are. Okay. There are three main advantages of program support. First is the targeted impact. One of the most significant advantages is that this type of funding allows organizations to concentrate their resources on specific needs within the community or the population they serve. By addressing particular challenges or gaps through dedicated projects, organizations can create meaningful change and demonstrate their effectiveness in tackling these issues. For example, an organization focusing on food insecurity may apply for program support to fund a specific meal delivery initiative for seniors. This targeted approach not only addresses the immediate need for nutritious food, but also highlights the organization's commitment to solving a pressing social issue. The next advantage is program support often comes with a structured framework, and that includes clear goals and measurable outcomes. When organizations apply for program funding, they must outline specific objectives they aim to achieve with the grant. This structured approach encourages organizations to think critically about their project design and implementation. It also provides a roadmap for success, guiding them in planning activities and allocating resources effectively. Having measurable outcomes allows organizations to track their progress and evaluate the impact of their programs. This data can be invaluable for future funding requests and strategic planning, as it demonstrates accountability and effectiveness to funders. Program support tends to be more appealing to funders who are interested in specific impacts and outcomes. Many funders are looking for projects that align with their priorities and demonstrate a clear plan for addressing particular issues. Organizations that present well-defined programs with targeted outcomes are often more competitive when seeking grants. The funder is going to want to see that their contributions will lead to tangible results, making program support an attractive option for those looking to invest in impactful initiatives. Program support is also typically defined when a funder has like strategic areas that they're going to do funding in. And so then you can tailor your application to meet the needs of that funder as it aligns to your program. Overall, program support offers significant advantages that can enhance an organization's ability to address specific needs, implement structured initiatives, and attract funding. By leveraging these benefits, your organization can maximize their impact and effectiveness in the communities they serve. So, what are the challenges of program support? Not everything is perfect, right? So we're going to have to jump in and see that program support can often be challenged by restricted funds. It can limit your organization's flexibility, forcing you to focus only on project-specific activities. Managing detailed project budgets and reporting can be resource-intensive and adding administrative burden that you weren't expecting. Finally, program grants often focus on short-term impact, which may not always contribute to long-term organizational sustainability. And then there's the common discussion that happens of why foundations lean more towards program support than they do organizational support. And sometimes the organization really just needs support in keeping their lights on, but when they have to tailor something to be exactly program related, that can often be hard to share your story effectively. So that brings us to operating support. Okay. So just like program supports, there are benefits to advantages and limitations to operating support. So general operating supports refers to the funding that is intended to cover the general expenses necessary for an organization's operation. Unlike program support, which is designated for a specific project, general operating support allows organizations to utilize funds for a broad range of needs. Some of the characteristics are that general operating support is flexible. This type of funding is not restricted to a specific activity or a project, and this allows organizations to allocate resources where they are most needed. This flexibility is particularly beneficial for organizations that may have fluctuating needs or unexpected expenses. For example, if your organization faces a sudden increase in operational cost, general operating support allows them to adapt without being tied to a particular project. So general operating support is crucial for maintaining the overall health of the organization. It supports the infrastructure necessary for operations, which includes staffing, facilities, and administrative functions. By covering essential costs, this funding allows organizations to focus on their core mission and maintain their programs effectively. It ensures that the organization can continue its work even when project-specific funding may be limited or uncertain. Okay, so some examples of what general operating support can cover would be rent, utilities, staff salaries, administrative cost. So rent would be if you need a physical space to operate, and general operating support can help cover rent cost for your program, your office, or your program facilities. Utilities, it's an essential service such as electricity, water, internet. Those things have to happen in order to have daily operations, and these costs can be supported through the general operating request. Staff salaries. Ensuring that your staff members are compensated for their work is fundamental to your success and your sustainability. General operating support can provide necessary funds to pay salaries, which is vital for retaining talent and maintaining your staff morale. Because remember, we want to pay livable wages to our staff, and so sometimes you can use operating support for that. Administrative costs, this includes expenses related to your office supplies, any like new computers or things like that, insurance, and then any other overhead that would keep your organization running smoothly. Essentially, general operating support helps maintain the overall sustainability and effectiveness of your organization. A lot of organizations would prefer to write for operating support, but oftentimes we cannot, and so we just write for program supports. So what are some of the advantages? Okay, so we've got three main advantages: flexibility, sustainability, and comprehensive development for general operating. One of the most significant is flexibility. Unlike program-specific funding, general operating allows for organizations to allocate funds where they are most needed. This flexibility is critical in addressing unforeseen expenses or shifting priorities. For instance, if you face an unexpected operational cost, like your rent cost was raised or a sudden need for technology upgrades, general operating funds can cover these without restrictions. Having the ability to direct your resources toward areas that need immediate attention also helps ensure the organization remains adaptable in the changing environment. And so that can be because of economic shifts or new opportunities, anything that comes your way. General operating support plays a vital role in supporting your long-term sustainability. By covering essential operation expenses such as staffing, rent, and administrative costs, it provides the financial foundation necessary for sustainable growth. For nonprofits, sustainability means more than just surviving year to year. It means being able to plan for the future with confidence. Unrestricted funding allows organizations to invest in long-term strategies, ensuring they can continue to serve their communities effectively. Having stable operational funding reduces your risk of disruption in services. When an organization's infrastructure is secure, it can deliver on its mission more consistently, even during lean periods when project-specific grants may be harder to secure. Another advantage of general operating is that it enhances your organization's overall capacity and effectiveness. Instead of being confined to funding only direct service projects, general operating allows your organization to strengthen your internal processes, professional development, and strategic planning. All three of those things are so important to the growth and the sustainability of your organization as a whole. Having the comprehensive approach to development ensures that not only are programs thriving, but the infrastructure behind the program is also robust and well supported. It empowers organizations to build their capacity over time, making them more effective in achieving their mission. And this is typically why everyone wants to apply for general operating support, because it allows you to plug and play where you need the funding the most. It also allows you to just do your work as you see fit and as you know it needs to be done. So we're going to talk about some of the key differences between program and general operating support. So this table kind of gives you a quick overview of the difference between the purpose, funding flexibility, reporting requirements, and impact measurement. Okay, so it's your side by side. For the purpose. The primary purpose of program support is to fund specific projects or programs that target particular needs within the community. And in contrast, general operating focuses on the organization's overall health and sustainability. Funding flexibility. Program support comes with restrictions, meaning that funds must be allocated to specific activities outlined in the grant proposal. But general operating is much more flexible and organizations can use these funds as they see fit. Reporting requirements. With program support, funders often require a detailed report on the progress and outcomes of the specific project funded. But for general operating, it usually has less stringent reporting requirements. Your funders will still want to see how the organization is utilizing their support, but the focus is less on specific outcomes and more on overall organizational effectiveness. Impact measures. Program support emphasizes project-specific outcomes, and then general operating measures the overall effectiveness and sustainability of your organization. You just have to decide which is right for you. General operating is harder to come by because funders want to see the value of their dollar and the impact that it makes. Okay, so what are some challenges of general operating support? Because it's harder to come by, some of the challenges are the funders prefer measurable immediate outcomes. So funders often prefer grants that fund specific projects because they can directly track the immediate tangible outcomes that those projects deliver. When funding a program, funders can easily see how their investments translate into measurable impact, whether it's the number of people served, the outcomes achieved, or the specific outputs delivered. Oftentimes, a challenge for organization is demonstrating the impact of unrestricted funding is a little bit more difficult. Since general operating grants don't fund specific projects, it can be harder to directly tie funder contributions to immediate quantifiable outcomes. Funders may hesitate to provide unrestricted support if they can't see concrete short-term results from their investment. So here's my thoughts on that. And I have a lot of thoughts, but that challenge of it not having clear objectives and measurables can be overcome if you look at your organization as a whole and do an organization-wide logic model. So what are you trying to achieve, and break that out across the entire organization as a logic model. Then you break it down further by projects or programs, and so then you are prepped and ready to go to have strong operating support type of quantifiable outcomes and objectives. Okay, so the second challenge is that the perception of risk, which equals a lack of specific deliverables. Since general operating support is not tied to specific projects or deliverables, funders may perceive it as riskier. It's the absence of clear time-bound goals that makes it harder for funders to assess the effectiveness and accountability of the funds they provide. Without these defined outcomes, there's a concern about how effectively your organization will use the funds and whether they will lead to tangible results. So some of the challenges is securing general operating support often means persuading funders to trust that their investment will lead to positive organizational growth, even if immediate measurable outputs aren't guaranteed. It's not just about the funding being used for operations, it's about showing how these operations ultimately support the mission, strategic goals, and long-term impact of the organization. So we have to do a better job at explaining how the use of general operating support dollars ultimately supports your mission, vision, strategic goals, and long-term impact. And you can provide some type of output that that operational support can help drive towards. Another challenge is difficulty in communicating the need for unrestricted funding. Funders often prefer giving grants for a specific project because they can more easily communicate the story of how their funds are being used, as well as the outcomes achieved. When it comes to restricted funding, the lack of a clear project focus makes it hard for funders to envision how their contribution will make a difference. It can be difficult for an organization to explain why general operating support is essential, especially if the funder is accustomed to funding specific projects with clearly defined outcomes. Organizations might need to advocate for the importance of investing in core functions like administration, infrastructure, and staffing to ensure the sustainability of their programs and services. And that advocating doesn't just happen in your grant proposal, that happens with building relationships with your funders. Because if you can tell them why a general operating support grant is a better fit for your organization, and you can build that relationship, that is going to help them be able to tell your story better. Another challenge is building and maintaining strong relationships with funders. Many funders are cautious about offering unrestricted funding to organizations they haven't worked with before, or organizations without a proven track record. Trust and history of success are key factors in whether funders are willing to provide general operating support. It would be like going and talking to a friend of a friend of a friend and saying, hey, I'm ABCD and I'm with this organization and this is what we do, and I need you to help me keep my lights on. Making that type of ask without some type of relationship building makes it harder for the funder to know and trust that you're going to do what you say that you're going to do. So securing general operating support often requires a deep, long-term relationship with funders. Funders need to feel confident in the organization's ability to deliver on its mission and manage the funds responsibly. This trust building process can take time and requires ongoing communication and transparency. One of the biggest challenges is that there's a limited availability of general operating support. Many funders have guidelines or restrictions that limit the amount of unrestricted funding they're willing to provide. They may prioritize project-based grants over operating support because it's easier for them to measure outcomes and demonstrate their impact. Since unrestricted funding is more competitive and less available, organizations often find themselves dedicating significant time and energy to securing operating support with no guarantee that they will succeed. So, when you're pursuing funding, your organization will often have to face the decision of choosing between program support and general operating. So let's go through a few considerations when you're trying to decide between these two. First, you're going to need to assess your organizational needs and funding strategies. This is the first step in determining whether to pursue program support or general operating support, is by assessing your organization's current needs and goals. You can't execute a plan if you don't have one. So starting with an assessment is going to help you make that call on which way you're going to go. If your organization has a specific project or initiative that requires funding, program support might be the best option to ensure those activities are fully funded and can meet targeted outcomes. On the other hand, if your organization needs flexible funding to cover ongoing operational expenses, general operating support is often the better choice for you. It's important to look at your organization's funding portfolio also. Is there a balance between restricted and unrestricted funding sources? Are you diversifying between program and operating support? And how can that strengthen your financial health and reduce your reliance on any single type of funding? Remember, you don't want to write in specific funders that even though you've got them for 20 years, it doesn't mean that you're going to get the grant again the next year. So you might just write in what your goal is and how you're either going to achieve that through program support or operational support. But doing an assessment is going to help you understand your funding strategy and how you're going to apply in the future. Okay, the next consideration is communicating with funders. And what I mean by that is you're going to clearly articulate how each type of funding aligns with your funder's goals. So once you've assessed your needs, it's important to communicate effectively with funders. When applying for program support, you're going to explain the specific how the specific project aligns with the organization's mission and what impact it will have on the community or the population you serve. For general operating support, you're going to focus on unrestricted funding and how it strengthens your organization's infrastructure and long-term sustainability. You're going to clearly demonstrate how this funding allows you to deliver on your mission by ensuring operational stability. Tailoring your message to the priorities of the funder is so important. Some funders prefer to support specific projects with tangible outcomes, while others may be more interested in sustaining organizations. So you just have to do your own research and figure out what is important to that funder. The next consideration for your organization is creating a strategic plan that integrates both types of funding so you have a balanced strategy. This involves a mix of both program support and general operating support, and it's essential to have that balance between restricted and unrestricted funds to ensure that both specific projects and operational needs are met. Incorporating both types of funding into your strategic plan allows you to be more resilient in the face of challenges. So, for example, if a project funding becomes scarce, having general operating support can help maintain staff and cover essential costs until new opportunities arise. Long-term sustainability is enhanced when your organization has a diversified funding stream. When planning, you need to really think about how each type of funding contributes to the overall organizational growth, stability, and impact. And seriously, if you do an organization type logic model, then break it down by your individual programs, and you start truly tracking what you say that you're going to track in these grant applications, you're going to see what the strengths and weaknesses of each of these programs or of your organization are, and you can better find out how to apply in the future. So are you lacking in one area and you really need to do more around organizational capacity building in order to get your organization to the next level? Then you're going to look for grants that give towards capacity building, general operating, things like that. But choosing between program support and general operating support requires a thoughtful assessment of your organization's need. It also requires clear communication with your funders and making sure you have a strategic financial plan. Having a balanced approach to all of this ensures that your organization will remain both mission-driven and operationally strong. So how do you do that? How do you balance between program and operating support? Balancing this is going to be so crucial for the long-term success and sustainability of your organization. Each type of funding serves different needs, and strategically combining them allows for a well-rounded financial structure. Here's a deeper look on how your organizations can balance both types. So with program grants, these grants fund the specific activities needed to launch or maintain a project. For example, a grant might cover the cost of hiring staff, purchasing materials, or conducting research for a new initiative. Program grants also help achieve specific outcomes. These grants are tied to your measurable goals and outcomes, which help organizations demonstrate their impact and fulfill their mission. Funders often prefer program grants because they can clearly track how their money is being used. Program grants are also short-term focused. They're essential for achieving immediate project goals, and they are usually short-term and linked to specific project timelines. This makes program grants less reliable for covering operational costs. So, here's some considerations for program grants. They are often highly competitive, and relying solely on them can make your organization vulnerable to funding cuts or delays. These grants might come with restrictions on how the funds can be used, and there may be a reporting requirement that is more time-consuming than what you realize. Okay, so general operating support is designed to cover the ongoing non-project specific needs of the organization. So some of the benefits of the general operating support is the flexibility, which we already talked about, and it allows your organization to use the funds wherever the need is greatest. It also, general operating supports also support the long-term sustainability. So being able to have unrestricted funding strengthens your organization's core infrastructure, and it enables you to weather any of the financial fluctuations you might have. It also helps ensure that your organization has the capacity to continue operating even when program-specific grants run out. Another benefit is it provides a financial cushion, which can be particularly helpful during times of economic uncertainty. So some considerations for general operating. Funders may be less inclined to give unrestricted funding because they may want to see tangible outcomes tied to their investment. These funds may be harder to obtain, as many funders prefer to see their contributions go directly to projects with clear, measurable outcomes. Okay, well, how do you balance both types? You're going to diversify your funding stream. It's essential that you do this to ensure financial resilience. Relying too heavily on one type of funding, whether it's program grants or unrestricted support, can leave you in a vulnerable situation. Having a mix of restricted and unrestricted funding can create a stable financial foundation that supports both short-term and long-term growth. By assessing your organizational needs, you're regularly going to assess where your organization is in terms of its development. Is your primary focus on launching new programs, or is it on strengthening your organization's operations? And it can be both, but you don't know that if you're not regularly assessing. During periods of growth or expansion, a program grant may be your primary focus. But when the organization is maturing, focusing on general operating support can ensure that your systems are in place to sustain those programs. And then you're going to have to communicate the value of each type of funding. For program grants, communicating this, how these funds will directly impact your community or service population, and you're going to do that by addressing a specific need. You're going to have to be prepared to explain the specific outcomes the funding will produce, such as how many people will be served, the expected improvements in services, or the measurable impact. For general operating, you're going to have to be clear on how unrestricted funding strengthens the organization's core functions and capacity. You also have to explain how it allows the organization to be more effective in managing its projects, delivering services, and planning for future sustainability. So, what questions do the funders typically ask? Well, when you're responding to these questions, it's essential to be clear, specific, and give data and be data-driven, whether you're applying for program or operating support. We're going to go through some specific how-tos on how to answer these questions. So, how will the funds be used? In a program grant, you're going to be specific about how funds will be allocated for the program's activities. Break down the budget into clear categories. So that's your typical staff salaries, supplies, equipment, marketing, and other program expenses. You're going to describe how these funds will directly contribute to program outcomes and how each activity supports achieving the project's objectives. For general operating, you're going to answer this question by providing a broader view of how the funds will be allocated across the organization's operations. This can include staff support, facility maintenance, technology upgrades, or infrastructure development. You're also going to emphasize how unrestricted funds will enable flexibility and long-term growth. The next question, how does this align with your mission and long-term goals? In a program grant, you're going to show the specific program or project directly and how it directly aligns with your organization's mission. You're going to highlight the alignment between the goals of the proposed program and the overall strategic vision of your organization. You're going to do this by including any data or evidence showing that the proposed initiative addresses a pressing need in the community or field. In general operating, you're going to focus on how general operating will help strengthen the overall organization, ensuring sustainability and the ability to execute long-term plans. This can include building organizational infrastructure, improving capacity, or addressing challenges in the field. For the question, what impact will the grant have? In program grants, you're going to be specific about your outcomes and measurables and impact the program will have. You're going to want to tell your funders how you will measure the program's success and how you will evaluate its effectiveness. This is where your SMART objectives come in. For operating support, in order to answer this question, you're going to describe the long-term impact that unrestricted funds will have on the organization's overall effectiveness. This is going to be harder to quantify in a short term, but funders want to know how it will help you increase organizational capacity and expand your reach. The last question is, what systems are in place to ensure accountability and results? For program grants, your funders want your assurance that the funds will be used as intended and that results will be tracked and reported accurately. You're going to describe your systems for financial oversight and your evaluation strategies. For general operating, you're going to explain to your funders how their investment contributes to measurable growth and long-term sustainability. This includes your financial controls and your operational systems to ensure the organization remains effective and financially sound. Okay, so some key takeaways. Program grants and general operating grants serve different but equally important purposes. Program grants drive specific initiatives and outcomes, while general operating grants provide flexibility and sustainability. The key is to balance both types of funding to ensure short-term success and long-term stability. Finally, building a strong relationship with the funders and communicating your needs transparently is essential for securing the right mix of funding. This is where we're going to open up for Q&A. So I believe we're just going to type it in the chat. Melissa, am I right? And then Melissa will read the question and I'll answer it if I can.
Yes, that is correct. So I'm going through the comments, and so far there aren't any questions, but if you have any, please put them in the comment section now, and I will make sure to read them to Allison so she can answer them. It doesn't look like any questions are coming in, so I think that looks like means that you just did a great job with the presentation. Everybody understood everything you're talking about. So if you do have questions following this presentation, please go ahead and still keep them in the comment section. We'll be monitoring that for the next several days, and we will make sure to get those questions answered for you. Oh, one just came in as I'm saying that. Linda asked, how do we find grants for either one of those funding sources?
That's going to depend on your prospect research. So we use GuideStar, we use GrantsWatch, we also use Foundation Center Online. Basically, you can decide what search terms you want to use in those databases, and it will pull up different funding opportunities that are available for those search terms within your parameters that you set.
All right, any other questions before we hop off? Okay, so before Allison talks about the next slide, I just want to remind everyone that you will get a copy of this presentation, the recording, the slides, everything at the end of this presentation within the next 24 to 48 hours. I will send that out to you. And again, if you have any questions, please make sure that you put them in the comments and we'll get those answered for you. Or you can reply to the email that'll be sent out and we will get those questions answered for you as well. So and as we're doing the next couple of slides, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat and I will monitor that as well and we can answer them before we hop off. So, okay, Allison, back to you.
Okay, so if we don't get to your questions in the chat later on, or you just want to chat with us and have other questions, always feel free to email. We will respond to that and try to get back to you as soon as possible. We also started a new initiative this year, and it's called Monthly Office Hours. It's not a new concept. It's just a time for anyone to claim 15 minutes on a specific day for a one-on-one chat with me to ask, or so I can answer or be asked any questions. And So if you are interested in that, shoot Melissa an email and she will forward you all the information for that. I'm looking on my calendar real quick to see when the next one is. It should be in February. I believe it is February 5th is when the next one is. And so if you're interested in that, more information will be sent out with the follow-up email. So that's an option to communicate with us. And then, of course, thank you for attending today. And you will get a free downloadable resource after this presentation closes. And we hope that you engage with us in the future with more webinars, or check out Boyd Grants Academy if there's more things you want to learn about. For example, there's a whole training on there about prospect researching. And also we talked a lot about logic models and measurable goals and objectives. There's trainings on that and things like that. So that's all I have. Melissa, if you want to wrap it up, we'll give you, I believe it's like 10 minutes back of your day, and hopefully you can use that 10 minutes wisely.
Yes, thank you all again for coming. We appreciate your attendance and everyone that was here. I will send out a link to register for the monthly office hours with Allison in the email. I do believe that it is, I believe it's February 5th, or maybe 8th. We'll get the date for you and I'll have it in the email so that you can register for that if you're interested in that, and you can have that one-on-one time with Allison. But you will receive the downloadable resource. For participating today, you'll get the PDF slides of everything that Allison talked about, as well as the recording from today, so that you have that at your disposal and you can watch it whenever you would like to do that. And then if you do have any other questions, please feel free to put them in the comment section, or you're welcome to respond to the email, or you can just send us an email at info@boydgrants.com and we'll respond as quickly as we can. We do appreciate everyone that was here and interacting with us, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar, which is in February on communication solutions. So hope you all have a wonderful day, and we'll see you at the next one. Bye.